The title of a literary work is possibly the second most important thing about it. The first, of course, is being its content. However, from another point of view, you can say that the title is more important even than the content, because this is the first thing that one is most likely to come across at a first glance. When you see a book, you first see its title. These days, reviews are there online. You can read reviews before reading the book, but there also often there is a title. So I can give an organic simile. Just as our names become our identities, so literary works are often known by their titles, possibly more so in case of poems. Now, there are different levels of titles. Sometimes, in certain poems or say literary works, the title is very straightforward. This is what we will discuss primarily today, because I have in mind the title of the poem Australia by A.D. Hope. So he calls it a nation. Australia is a nation of, uh, trees, drab green and desolate grey. All these things. I mean, the major body of the poem is all about Australia, except the last line, where, of course, backed by the idea of the deserts there, he predicts or thinks about the emergence of some kind of a great man. Otherwise, the poem is all about Australia. So we can say this is a straightforward title, and if you are to comment on the suitability of the title, which is an important topic in many cases for students, so you have to compare the theme, in short, with the title. Is there one-to-one correspondence between the two? So in case of this poem Australia, we can say it is very suitable. That uh, why? Because the title directly corresponds to the theme. Sometimes titles may be very ambiguous. Shakespeare is a case in point. The Merchant of Venice. If we keep look at this title, there is an alternative title, which implies that Shylock is the hero. So we will not discuss that, because popular title is Merchant of Venice. You don't know who is actually the Merchant of Venice that is being referred to, whether it is Antonio that he is referring to, or Shylock, or even Bassanio. So there is an ambiguity, and possibly by modern standards, or postmodern standards rather, both modern and postmodern, so ambiguity makes things much more subtle and acceptable. Twelfth Night, he named a play, or What You Will. If you don't accept Twelfth Night, whatever you like. When he could not get any name for one play, he gave it a title, As You Like It. Such a beautiful title. So, whatever you like it. This goes in with, or goes hand in hand with, his theory about name not being important, words in a name and all that in Romeo and Juliet, which of course is a direct title, the play, because the play is a representation or record or description or elaboration, whatever you like to call it, of the love affair between Romeo and Juliet. So, mm, you know, titles often give clue to what is there inside a poem or a play by representing the content in a succinct way. But there may be some other titles, for example, which adds to the meaning of the title. There may be some title of a poem, some title of some poem, which doesn't seem to say anything about the content. Then you may think why the poet or the author has given this title, which doesn't seem to have any relation with the content of the literary work, and does it give us any additional meaning about the work? Then definitely it will give. So, you know, Think about these things if you are to write any answer about the suitability of a title. If there is a one to one correspondence, then of course very suitable, highly suitable. And if there is no one to one correspondence between the title and the content, then you have to decipher or think about how you can relate the two. However, so far as I am concerned, my paper, since I approach literature with an open mind, and I think all should, it may be so that you may think about a better title than the poet, because literature is after all subjective. Now, Progressive Insanities of a Pioneer, the poem that you have, my fourth sem students, that can be just a pioneer's dilemma, for example, instead of making it very telltale, progressive insanities, because these were her early stage work. So when we are early at our work, I mean, when we are in an early stage, we have a lot of anxiety to show people that we are very accurate, we are concerned, and we know a lot. So we write a lot even but as we grow older, then things become subtler. So that way, the death of the bird is also very telltale. I would, for example, personally say that a bird would have been a much better title without mentioning the death or even death. Bird, then second best would be death, or for example, coming home, right? Could be a very good title for the poem, then direct the death of the bird. Some of the, I mean, not some, Shakespeare sonnets do not have any title, the sonnet sequence, So they are known either by the particular number, sonnet first, sonnet second, sonnet third, or by the first line of the sonnet. So let me not to the marriage of two minds. So remember, in future, if you are teacher, it would be quite wrong to set a question on the suitability of title of Shakespeare's sonnets, because if the setter has Shakespeare in mind, because as such he didn't give any title to them. So these are some of the things that I wanted to say, but the basic point, we are coming back to it again, just as we say face is the index of the mind. So how a title gives you hints and ideas beforehand of what is there going to be, or what you are going to encounter in a poem or a play. Now I'm just coming to some personal discussion for half a minute. You will be surprised to know, it's my personal habit. For a long time now, I do not go by titles of things, especially if they are poems. And it often happens with newspapers, so I direct go to the content. I don't read the title. Maybe it may not be so about the novel, so these days I don't read. So maybe it's a kind of mental resistance from me to accept the given title. I go to the thing and then I have my understanding, but this is on a personal note. You may write in comments whether some of you have this kind of habit or not. And sometimes, interestingly, what happens is that after I do that, I do not go back to the title. Then later, when someone asks me about a poem or a thing I have read, I just give some very different name from what its name was. So anyway, this may be creative thing, but for students it must be a disadvantage, because they are supposed to be accurate learners now, the title part. So remember the accurate title. But so far as I am concerned, it is absolutely fine if you point out that in your subjective understanding, the title of the poem is not suitable. You have that option, I think, so far as I am concerned. You need not say that, something which is not suitable, it is the most suitable thing. There is no defensing the indefensible. But then again, it's subjective. So thank you very much. Keep these things in mind.